You're good?
Ready. At this time, I'd like to call our regular monthly board meeting back to order. And if you would you please join me in a moment of silence? Thank you. At this time, would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, our superintendent, Dr. Gainey, will share some comments.
Thank you, Mr. Cook, board members. A couple comments I'd like to share tonight. First of all, I want to congratulate Chandra Williamson, our teacher at Randolph Middle School, for being named the Linda Petty Honor Educator Scholar for the 2020-2021 school year by the Development Foundation of the North Carolina Center for the Advancement of Teaching, also known as NCAT. This award honors Linda Petty, who spent 16 years on the Randolph County Board of Education, and 7 of those years she served as the chairperson of the board. With this honor, Ms. Williamson will represent our school system and get to choose a program of her choice. And the honor also covers all instructional costs, food costs, lodging costs, program materials costs, and travel costs. In addition, Ms. Williamson will receive $250 to use in her classroom. Next, I just want to make some comments to several groups of individuals associated with our school system. First of all, I want to thank all the staff members for your hard work during the first 25 days of the school year. This year has led to a lot of new challenges, and I'm extremely proud of the efforts of our staff members to take care of our students. I also want to thank all of our students for your efforts during the first 25 days of the 2020-2021 school year. Please know I wish the circumstances were different. I want all of you back in school together at the same time. Furthermore, I know that you missed the different aspects of school life that were taken away from you on the afternoon of March 14 with no prior warning. Nonetheless, I can assure you that the goal of the school system's leadership and the Board of Education is to restore our schools to regular processes as soon as the conditions associated with the COVID-19 pandemic permit such action. Finally, I also want to thank all the parents of our students. Your efforts during the first 5 weeks of school have been great. I cannot thank you enough for your efforts to share information with our school system and work with the new safety standards in place as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. At this time, I also want to make a couple more comments about some things in our school system. To begin with, I just want to point out to our staff members that I'm aware that for some people it has been a difficult transition to the remote instruction, particularly with the use of Canvas, but particularly at the elementary school level. Our school system started on the road with Canvas in 2014, but no one ever saw March 14, 2020 coming. When staff members left school on March 13, 2020, no one anticipated that the next day would be the start of our school system's complete reliance on Canvas as the vehicle for instruction for students system-wide. Our school system has to have a learning management system of some type, like Canvas, in order to have remote instruction as needed until the end of this pandemic. I can assure staff members that my staff and I will continue to work to provide support for school-based staff members to help us get better at this process. Hopefully over time, our ability to use this instrument system-wide will improve. All of us are hoping for the return of our students on a full-time basis to alleviate some of the stress that has come from this remote instruction and in particular using different instruments such as Canvas. However, I also want to remind staff members that we need to continue to work to get better at this because we never know when a school may be placed on remote instruction due to a COVID-19 issue on campus. Next, I want to speak about attendance. I know the attendance process has been cumbersome on staff members this year. For the first time in our school system's history, staff members have been given the responsibility of accounting not only for students in class face-to-face, but also ones engaged in class through remote instruction. I realize there have been new things that are involved in the process. But student attendance is very important, and our resources in our school system depend on that. So I say thank you to you for your efforts to work with the attendance process for remote students as well as face-to-face. I say thank you, staff members, also for your work with remote instruction. I know it has not been easy, but I'm proud of the efforts, and I'm sorry for any additional stress that is brought on anybody. Education changed in the Randolph County school system on Saturday, March 14. We'll get back to where we were, but it did change as remote instruction became a bigger player in our daily education program in the school system. Next, I want to talk about September 10th. The school year started with a lot of new standards in place for all schools, system-wide. However, on September 10, I shared with our principals what I called, or what I think is, we're opening the playbook. There's creativity that will start occurring in all schools. Our principals and their staff members are very capable of handling this creativity. This creativity could lead to a lot of things. Development. It could lead to a teacher being assigned to take care of all the students who are 100% remote. It could lead to a teacher having a class of 100% remote students and other face-to-face classes. Who knows where that creativity goes, and who knows where it ends. But I'm confident that the talent in our school system among our staff members is high enough and great enough to take this creativity where it needs to go, with the focus on what our job is take care of kids and provide a future for them. Lastly, I want to speak to September 10 again. Throughout the summer, we did open up flexibility with whether you want to be remote or whether you want to be face-to-face instruction with our A-Day, B-Day format. For 4 weeks, I listened, I observed, I asked people questions, and one of the things that came back round and round was, we've got to stop the movement back and forth. Our staff is working very hard, and I appreciate the parents' efforts to help us with that. As my September 10 announcement on the phone message said, we have a deadline coming up on September 25, and appreciate all the parents' efforts to deliberate what they are going to do with their children as far as face-to-face or instruction or remote instruction. I just appreciate that, and I understand it is different. But this is something that we need to put in place for our school system. So I want to remind parents, whatever choice is made on the 25th, your child will remain on that plan until we get outside of this pandemic and the optional education plans that are in place for the pandemic. I didn't say if, I said until we get out. We're coming out of this, we're bringing our kids back to school. They are going to come back to school, and we're going to get back to school as we knew it. But until that time, we have these challenges. So, board members, I appreciate your support. I appreciate you hanging in there with me. I've told many people, 8 of us never wavered from bringing kids back to school, and I'm very proud of that. With that, though, has led to some challenges, and we'll continue to work through it to provide additional support for staff as we move through the remainder time that we deal with this pandemic. So thank you, Mr. Cook. That concludes my comments.
Thank you, Dr. Gainey. Earlier this afternoon, the superintendent of the Randolph County Schools, Dr. Stephen Gainey, had his performance review for the 2019-2020 school year with the board. We met this afternoon. The board reviewed the performance and praised Dr. Gainey for steadily steering the school through the difficult period from March to the end of the year. Dr. Gainey made thoughtful decisions in the best interest of students and teachers and kept the board informed as the pandemic limited access to school facilities and required educators to rethink how to educate the children of Randolph County. You led the charge of making it happen quick, too. Prior to the declaration of the state of emergency, Dr. Gainey and Randolph County Schools were making good progress in a number of areas. School personnel were trained and provided additional resources to improve instructional outcomes. Resources were reallocated to respond to student needs. Additional programs were growing in positive ways. Various personnel received additional supports and training to broaden their leadership skills. Dr. Gainey continues to impress the board with his presence in the school community and the community at large. He represents Randolph County well, and the parents, staff, and Randolph County residents all have avenues to have their concerns heard by the superintendent. Dr. Gainey's relationship with this board is professional and respectful. As a result of his performance in this most difficult year, and it has been a difficult year, and you really have done a great job standing by the school system and all the extra hours that this guy's put in, you have no clue. The board is extending Dr. Gainey's contract to the maximum time permitted by law, which will be through June the 30th, 2024. And we're proud to have you as our superintendent. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Mr. Phillip. Thank you, board members. It's a pleasure working for you and representing Randolph County.
At this time, I would need a motion to approve the August 17th, 2020 minutes.
So moved.
I have a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, at this time, we will move on to the recognition. We have one tonight. Tim Hootie.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cook. Good evening to you and all the board members and Dr. Gainey. I have the honor this evening of recognizing the Randolph County School System's Principal of the Year for the 2020-2021 school year. The Principal of the Year award is nominated and selected by fellow principals in recognition of outstanding leadership and service to his or her school. Shay Setzer Gross is the principal of Randolph Early College High School. She earned her Bachelor of Arts degree in English from UNC Chapel Hill, her Master's in Education degree from Wake Forest University, her add-on licensure in Public School Leadership from Western Carolina University. She's licensed in Principal K through 12, English 9 through 12, Marketing Education 6 through 12, and as a Career Development Coordinator. Mrs. Gross began her career in education as a teacher at Ashford High School in the Ashford City School System. She then served as a Career Development Coordinator at Ashford High School. She came to the Randolph County School System in 2015 to become the Assistant Principal at Uwharrie Middle School. That was followed by a stint as Assistant Principal at Trinity High School. In 2018, she began in her current role as the Principal at Randolph Early College High School. So Shay Setzer Gross, Principal of Randolph Early College High School, if you would please come forward. Brian Biggs of our Board of Education. As our school system's Principal of the Year for the 2020 and 2021 school year, and we congratulate you on this outstanding honor.
Okay. We had no one to sign up for public comments tonight. So we'll move on, and I need a motion to adopt the meeting agenda. Have a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Move on to the information items with Dr. Gainey.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. I bring to you tonight a donation contribution from Archdale Trinity Circo Club Foundation Incorporated to Hopewell Elementary School. And you have the information there. I received a memorandum from Lloyd Daniels, treasurer at Hopewell Elementary School on 8/24. Attached to that was a letter of thank you written by Dr. Aaron Barr, the principal, on the 20th of August. This contribution was in the amount of $250 to be used on the school's Exceptional Children Program. Per Board Policy 8220, I bring this to you as an information item since its value was $5,000 or less, and I did accept it on behalf of the school system on August 24th.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Gainey. Moving on to the curriculum and instruction, Kathy Waddell will present.
Good evening. Board members, tonight I bring before you an information item entitled the approval of request to delay the accreditation and engagement review for the Randolph County school system. On August the 17th, I brought before you the request that went to Cognia, the accreditation engagement review panel. And that request was to delay the accreditation process due to the global pandemic. Subsequent to your approving the request, Dr. Gainey and I had a conversation with Dr. Susie Issa about how we could either delay the request or move forward. Dr. Issa listened carefully to Dr. Gainey as he outlined why we felt like it was in our best interest to delay at this time. On August the 29th, we received notification of the request for delay for accreditation from Dr. Issa and her team. Our accreditation expiration date is now July 30th, 2022. So we will continue to work with Cognia as we prepare for the next accreditation process. Are there any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we need a motion to approve the consent items. Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to the action items, Dr. Gainey.
Okay, board members, before I start, I'm going to pass out a schedule of events to you. I forgot to pass them out earlier, so I'll send them each way. Just shows things coming up. I'm not sure if there's anything new. I will tell you the 51st Annual School Board Association meeting is, everything we have found is it will be done virtually. So it will not be, in Greensboro as it has in the past. So I'll pass this out real quick. Okay, board members, the next item that I'd like to share with you tonight on the agenda involves another gift that we received, and this is an action item tonight because of the value of it. On the 11th of August, Chris Harrington, Director of Operations of Elastic Therapy, who's also been very involved in our Apprenticeship Randolph program, he's a very big teammate of our school system in his company. He delivered 25,320 masks to our school system and for our use with student staff and staff. The value of the gift is about $40,000, so it's clearly over the threshold listed in policy 8220, which is $5,000. So anything over $5,000 need to bring to you as board to approve. Each mask was somewhere in the neighborhood of more than $1 in cost and production. So at this point, I bring this gift to you for recommended approval.
So we need a motion to approve the gift from Elastic Therapy to the school system. Have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Well, Dr. Gainey.
Okay, board members, want to bring up a topic tonight, and I sent you some stuff to look at. As I think it was maybe the July meeting, maybe June, we got to a point where we realized that things were not moving along any better to get school started on normal procedures in August. So we made a decision at that point to shut down athletics at the middle school level in the fall. And so tonight I want to bring back some options for middle school athletics. And I think when Ashworth, Student Services Director, and also County Athletic Director is probably coming in at this point. Gina, would you see if she's out in the hallway? But I want to present that we really looked at this 3 options, and felt like it was probably time to discuss this again, knowing that we're getting close to November, which is when November 4th, when high school athletics starts back. So you have 3 options. The first option is option number 1, and it is one in which Edwina has gone through and worked and discussed this with me as well. The idea of offering all sports. So if you look back at the Athletic Association's schedule, we went through and figured a way to provide all sports. I think the only one there was only one that maybe indoor track, I think had to be eliminated at the high school level statewide, but I think that's the one. But at any rate, option number 1 that you've received is the one that would offer all sports. It's the only one that goes back and picks up football and softball from the fall, which is what we lost with the decision we made earlier. There will be no tournaments at any sport with any sport season, because that adds roughly a week or 2, possibly as much as 2 weeks on. And if you do that, we start having some overlap. If we do this one, it's important that we'll limit all sports to a 7-game season. There will be a little overlap with baseball and soccer, but that happens traditionally. A big thing you'll look at is we're moving wrestling to the end, because with all going on, we've moved football to the spring, February 1 to April 7th. That is a correction, so that's not March 24th, it's going to be April 7th. And basically, everything that's on either one of these 3 options, any of these 3 options, basically allows for just about the equivalent number of practices that prior to a sports season starting. Maybe off a day or 2, but the football issue is we have to have 8 practices before they can play a game. And if I look at the calendar, I think in winter we have that exactly, almost the exact number of days, is that correct, in winter before they play their first football game in middle school. Don't they start the first day in the practice on normal times, the first day of school, and then they play the following Wednesday for the first time?
Correct. Well, they start during the first weekday.
That's
First
work day, excuse me, yeah.
Yeah.
So option number 1, yes, it reverses some order of events. So option number 1 is move football and move some things around. Looks like, volleyball is that first part of it's been volleyball's been moved up some too. Wrestling's moved to the end. One of the things is that wrestling will overlap into the middle school testing window. So that is something to think about. But that's the only option that allows us to pick up all the sports, including football and softball from the fall. The second option, again, moves wrestling to the middle, and to the end. And what it really does here is really, the second option simply just says, we're done with the fall, we're not going to touch the fall sports, we're going to pick up in the winter and go forward. Sports seasons will remain the same, whether you were a 7-game season or a 14-game season. Wrestling was 6 matches, just because Ashburn City Schools combines both their middle schools into one team. It does allow the spring sports schedule to remain as traditional, since that was canceled last spring. One thing we need to take into account is daylight savings time. Just noted these because none of our middle school facilities are lighted, and so there's going to be some issues there. There may be some decisions we have to make regarding 5th quarter at middle school level for outside of athletics. because of daylight, but, so that's really the difference there. And that one does not include football or softball. Also, option 3 does not pick up football and softball. Option 3 has no fall sports. And again, none of them have tournaments. And the reason tournaments are not in any of these options is because that we run out of time. We'll be outside the school year if we don't watch it with the extra week and a half, 2 weeks that tournaments lead to or add to a season. The third option, it says equal sports season. That means everybody plays each opponent only one time. So these are the options. The third option does not touch the middle school testing window. That's a positive there, whereas the first two do kind of overlap on the middle school end of year testing window. But again, option 1 allows you to have all sports, including softball and football, which we had to cancel in the fall. Option 2 picks up just in the winter season and moves forward, excludes football and softball. And option 3 excludes football and softball and has equal time of the season. So I bring that to you tonight. Also note that wrestling in every one of the options has been moved to the end for safety issues associated with the COVID-19 pandemic. So hopefully by the end of the year we can get that sport in too. So I'll open the floor for any questions you may have of myself or Ms. Ashworth. But we felt like at September 21 we probably need to get in a conversation. I do have calendars if you would like them. I have the High School Athletic Association calendar. Does anybody want to? I'll just pass these out in case you want to reference these.
Appreciate you guys going back and looking at this, I'm sure.
Yeah, Dr. Gainer, I had a couple of questions.
Okay.
Cheerleading would also then move out to April 7th also, right? If you do the football.
You know, actually, I would have to redo that. Yes, sir. We caught the football this afternoon late, but yes, cheerleading. Board members note that cheerleading on option 1 would move out to April 7th. You catch Mr. Cover. We were looking at
another question. In the football, I know we will run into the daylight savings times and the lighting. Have we thought about maybe doing Saturday games for football?
We haven't. I don't know that won't be an option, but what we're trying to do is get into a window of time right now. Don't know what. Now, I will tell you, one of the things we're going to have a concern with is just me. We're going to be concerned about some of the fields being, I think Randolph plays on the same field in middle school, so we're not going to be playing on green grass for a lot of times. There's going to be a lot of wear. But if we did nighttime, if we did Saturday at work, or if we happen to use some nighttime, we'd have to use high school stadiums if that's available. So the creativity, once we get inside the schedule, I think there's options for creativity between the middle and high schools. I'm not going to, I don't see a need for us to get in the middle of that. If a feeder middle school, works out with the high school, like maybe Southwest Middle, works out something to play on the high school stadium, then I'm fine. I think that's a good option.
Yeah, I didn't know about the number of days they could actually be participating, if it could be 6 days or whatever it is.
Well, we have, and Lena gave me some information. We were talking about.
That's fine. I mean,
We were talking about. Oh, here it is, Mr. Cutler. All right. So football, the league limits 1 game. This is middle school. Remember, middle school is not governed by the High School Athletic Association. Middle school is governed by DPI. So football can only have 1 game a week. Softball 2, basketball 2, wrestling 2, volleyball is 4, soccer is 2. And baseball's 2, and you could go up 1 in a week if weather caused the need to go up, okay? But pretty protective on that with the middle school age active.
And Dr. Gainey, a couple things. And Ms. Ashworth, I appreciate this. This is so awesome to give these students an opportunity. Me personally, on a personal standpoint, I know we're not voting yet, but my personal feeling is, even though the logistics are going to be hard, and it may be hard, and we may, because of weather, we may miss a game or two, but my personal feeling is option one, and the reason being is because one sport may be more valuable to one person, and the other person is more valuable, and who are we to call? And I think all sports are important, and I think that we need to do everything we can to get in as many games as we can in, and if we can't get them all in, that's fine, but we do the best we can to give every child a chance to participate, because some children today, that softball may be their only sport, that football may be their only sport, and that's their passion, and I think that we need to do all that we can, and I know it's going to be logistics with officials and things like that we spoke about, but I think we need to do all we can to give everyone a chance and not discount any sport. I know we're not discounting, but we're looking at ways that we can make it work, but I think we need to do all we can to let everyone have a chance to play.
I just want to make sure I understand. For that option that you're talking about, Brian, with football, that goes April 4th, what you said? Or
April 7th.
April 7th, okay.
And we may, Mr.
Okay. So that week is spring break where there is...
Well, we may go back in and have to save football 6 games because we're concerned about that spring break.
Right.
Here's the deal, Mr. Burgess. We can't put football in the spring before February 1 because DPI identifies fall, winter, and spring sports seasons in middle school. And February 1 is the absolute first day of spring sports season in middle school. So we've pushed football as far up as we can. We can't put it in 2 sports seasons. So there's our issue.
Well, to me, and I know Mr. Burgess was talking, even if we play 6 games, is something.
Sure.
Even if we do 6, I think the parents and the student athletes appreciate it.
That is accurate. We can't push football. It has to be in one sports season or the other for the DPI middle school requirements. So we pushed it. And so the interesting question, your question, Mr. Burgess, this afternoon when we found that on April 7th, first thing it went and said was, well, here's the problem with that. You've got spring break in the middle of that. So I actually have written a note based on her conversation with me, if we might have to cut the season to 6 games to keep from overlapping the spring break. So.
I got a couple questions on the requirements to play sports. We don't have no set grading schedule right now. Are we still gonna hold our athletes accountable for their grades to be eligible to play?
We're grading like we were before March 13th. Yes, sir. Eligibility requirements will be in place. Yes.
Okay, because the middle school has it also.
They will
carry at least C. And if a kid's totally virtual, is he still gonna be eligible to play sports?
Yes, sir. So right now with the workouts, if a child is an A-day or B-day child, we've not said to anybody who, say they're an A-day child, we've not said to anybody on those 3 days you're virtual, you can't come back in. In fact, our board policy allows the part-time homeschool child who's part-time enrolled with us to participate with us as well, so even if they're all virtual.
Dr. Gainey, can I share that basketball, if you go with option 1, anything that starts prior to the end of the first semester, with us aligning with the high school association, they're automatically eligible by academics. It's a local decision for attendance, and so we would make them automatically eligible. But Dr. Gainey is correct in saying when we start second semester, which is where football and everything below falls, they would be held accountable for passing 3 out of 4 classes in the current semester in fall.
And Mr. Bull, to your point, the last I want to say it was either my last video or my last phone message. I was hearing a little bit of conversation out there in different circles that we were waiting on the state to tell us what we were doing for grading this year. And I addressed it, one of those, that's why I brought it up, because I wanted, we're here at interims right now. And we need to, we're not on a pass fail. You know, when the state made that decision last spring, we're on regular grading. So.
Any more comments or questions?
And that's one thing these kids gonna realize, if we vote on bringing sports back, and, depending on how serious they are about their schoolwork right now, and you start the first sport, and they're not there, maybe this will help them want to do the work.
Mr. Cook, can I make one more comment for whoever might be tuned in on our meeting tonight? Mr. Biggs made a comment, when we get into January, none of us know what the weather's going to look like and how it's going to be. And if you see in here, because of the schedule and how confined the time it is, we've noted that if you miss the game, you can make it up during that week, but it really can't bleed over to the next week because it's going to start throwing things out of just sending them messing up the schedule a whole lot. But there will be logistical issues here. We know that even at the high school level, there will be logistical issues with activity buses and possibly officials. We're prepared for that at the high school level as well. But I also will say that, I was writing my comments the other night about, that I mentioned earlier, one of the things that just kind of came out was school got taken away, and a lot of things were taken away from children on the 14th of March. And if we can get some things back, I want to be a part of that, if we can. If we can't, we can't. But if we can get some things back, then I want to be a part of that. And I thank you for running with this, because she ran with it, we talked about it, and she ran with it, so I think we have some options.
I'm Brian there. I'm with I like option one. I know it's not, or it shouldn't be this board's job to set the schedule, or as far as how let the athletic directors and the coaches work within the schedule. But like on the middle school football, and seeing how, like you just said, we're not going to make up games after that week. Once it's gone, it's gone. So I think it'd be good to maybe try to schedule the games on Tuesday. That way, at least you do have Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday to play that game, versus the Wednesday game, when Thursday being the only day. So, but athletic directors and coaches make that decision.
And I like that idea, because we know any overlap we have in high school football, we have high school football on Thursdays and Fridays. And, that's kind of the concept that high school playoffs in baseball, and I know baseball and softball, you get that window of when's the next round will be played by. And a lot of coaches will take that first possible date for that round, because they don't know what the weather's going to be like. And so I like that idea too, and we'll let that creativity go with the athletic directors. We need to get it on the table with them and let them run with it now. Because one of the things I'm struggling with right now at the high school level is what's going on in, like for instance, our 3A school is in a conference with a bunch of schools from another county. And so Ashboro and Southwest Randolph High School, seeing what their conference members are going to do could be challenging with their schedule.
Okay, so it sounds to me like option one is, everyone agree on that?
Yeah, let's make a motion.
Okay, so I need a motion to approve option one for the middle school athletic schedule.
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you, board members, and for those that are engaged or tuned in to our meeting tonight, that option is the one that includes all sports at middle school level. Thank you, board members. I appreciate your support of our students and trying to provide them with the opportunities, all the opportunities that are out there that we can do with the possible weather issues that might come up in the winter.
I mean, I agree with the sports part in middle school. I just want to make sure we monitor those grades and know one who's failing to participate. You know, don't believe in rewarding somebody who's not earned it. That's my whole point about it.
Okay, moving on to school plans for grades K through 5.
Mr. Cook, at this time, I'd like to pass out a document and walk through it with the board and just give you some ideas of some items associated with this, and then we can have some discussion after that, board members, and see where we're headed with the governor's recent announcement. Okay, board members, I want to go through a couple of things in relation to Thursday afternoon's announcement by the governor, and just share with you some thoughts and obviously have some discussion with you about what's best for our K-5 students and our school system. So just to kind of go through the announcement on Thursday the 17th now allows students in grades K-5 to come back to school, all of them at the same time, as early as the 5th. With this, safety precautions we already have in place, such as cloth face coverings, morning screenings, when people come to school or even throughout the day for staff and students will remain in place. And also, social distancing will remain in place. In fact, really the only thing that we would do differently is we're going to have to use our buses differently as far as limits, because there's just some logistical issues there. And the other issue will be, obviously, the limited number of students in a classroom will not be in play anymore. So with this, I want to keep that in mind and make sure everybody knows that that will be the preference, that we would keep everything in place. I'm really proud of everybody in the community. Was not comfortable telling people back in July and early August, we've got to keep our schools closed to parents and closed to community members. But they have stepped up, and they know that the most important thing is getting children back in school, and they've really been helpful and great teammates. So those items will stay in place. Now, just some challenges that came from this announcement. It is going to take several weeks to get bus routes ready. It is going to take several weeks to reorganize the school nutrition to get ready to serve more meals. There will be some re-rostering. These are possible things, re-rostering of students. I talked in my opening comments about opening the playbook to creativity. Well, we may very likely we anticipate having a teacher responsible for 100% only remote students. And so maybe it'd be for all day, or maybe there's enough at a grade level for one teacher to take care of all those students who are remote. Or maybe it'll be just a group of students, and other times for our face-to-face. There is a chance that a child's teacher could change. What I've seen at the elementary level in my 7 years here, and did not spend a lot of time at the elementary level prior to coming here, based on the roles I had, but I've seen a lot of teachers divide students up at the elementary level based, reading groups in intervention groups. So that may not be as big an issue as it might have been 15 years ago, but there again, it may be a big issue, so I'm not going to discount it. It's out there. The family support plan would obviously have to be closed down. Whenever we bring everybody back, it's not needed, but we've got to get some time for the principals now to go back and decide what to do with the staff who've been taking care of that program during the past 25 days. And then here's one that's come out of from Sheena Creech, and Dale Brinkley, and Kathy Waddell. What do we do about the Chromebooks that are at home right now with our elementary students? And the easy thing is to say, bring them all back. But we could have a COVID-19 situation where we have to send a school home or a grade level home for 14 days, like we did at Trinity High School. They handled that unbelievable. That staff, that community, they handle that great, and any other school that does that will handle it great, I'm convinced. But the question is, if we do that, then we're going to be faced with distribution of Chromebooks again. And I will tell you, talking to Kathy and getting information from Sheena and Dale, our elementary level is probably the best positioned in the Chromebook numbers as well. So if any group, if I had to go to any level and say, leave them at home, yeah, I would probably pick that level. You know, so now it's not forever, but it is till we get out of this pandemic, because we don't know what from one day to the next if we might have to do something like that. So I want to share with you that that's kind of when I look back at what was announced on Thursday, that's kind of some summary ideas. I'll stop there, and if you have any questions about that, and then I'm just going to share with you some recommendations as I've thought through it, and let's have some dialogue about what works best for our kids. So anything up the first part and it's on the screen now. I was working on it, revising it all day long, trying to get something that hopefully made sense when you read it. I was hoping it would. And if it doesn't, I'll answer any questions you have.
All right. So, an obvious question, I guess, per the governor's orders, what is social distancing under this plan?
It would still involve movement throughout the building. Obviously, if we have, now we've gone from 10 kids to 20 kids in a classroom, you know, that line's going to be a lot longer, but trying to keep distance between the children. Won't be able to do it in the classrooms.
Okay.
And they acknowledge, I felt like that was acknowledged from the beginning. It's recommended, we'll try to work at it, but we're not going to be able to keep desks that far apart, because we all know you go to the older schools and the classrooms are somewhat smaller. If you compare the size of the classrooms in the original high school, 4 original high schools to Providence Grove and Wheatmore, it doesn't take long to see that difference. So that's the piece right there. Limiting, really, number 3, Mr. Burgess, that's really where what you're saying, I tie that in. We're going to have the classroom setting like it was, other than it may be helped a little bit by if students choose to stay 100% remote. That would give us some opportunity for social distancing in their room. Now, in the hallways, we can certainly do social distancing, and it just may mean lines are longer down the hall.
So how many kids can we put on the bus then?
We've looked at right now, a 72 passenger bus on the current rules is 24, but we'll look, and we probably won't be able to limit it now with the elementary students. Now, one of the beauties of this is the buses have been split up, there's buses for elementary, middle, and high, so that's going to help some. And again, that's what we've got to see too, Mr. Burgess, what our response is to this, but really, we're going to use buses as we need to get kids to school.
Because don't we have, at some elementary schools, we have some buses that make 2 routes. They got kids under current plan, correct?
Yes, and that's where the rerouting is gonna start occurring. We're gonna have to get a declaration from people, and I'm gonna talk about that in a minute, about who's coming, who's not, so we have time to resort these bus routes, and that's what, I'm gonna give you some time frames on that based on talking to staff, but we're also dealing with smaller individuals. We're not dealing with the high school size child on the bus, so hopefully we can make that work better with, even though maybe more people on the bus at one time.
All right, so, I'm sorry, but so how many seats are on 72 passenger bus?
24.
24, so that's basically one.
See, it started out, way back when, you could only put one child per seat every other seat.
Okay,
That was about June.
right.
Then it changed to one per seat. And I do believe, if I remember right, part of that rule changed also that if you were siblings, you could share a seat.
Okay.
So,
So do you anticipate, it sounds like you do, as far as, there's gonna be more than one per seat though on the school bus there?
don't know, we really will have to see. But here's what I'll say, if there is, we're gonna make it work. And we're still gonna have to call face coverings, we're not gonna have them sitting up beside each other. Hopefully we can cut out double routes, because, the other piece out there has been out there the whole time. I remember somebody said back in the summer, that we chose B because it was the least expensive way. B was the most expensive way, because having this transportation run the way we've been doing it to get kids to school has been expensive, and I commend Wendy and her staff, because Wendy Anderson and her staff have worked, and part of this decision on Friday of which way are you going, that's also affected some of her work as well. So that's why we need some time. We do. I think we all want the kids back in school, but we want to do it right. This board has a reputation of stepping out there and doing school from day one, and it was done right. And I want to make sure we do this right as well.
On, like K through 3, the classroom size is what, 15, 18, 17?
Oh, we're down to, I have to look back, Mr. Cook, you asked me that question. I think we're down into I think after this year, we only have one grade level to take to 16, so we've been coming on down, so we're.
4 and 5, you could have as many as,
You could have 28.
You could have 25, 28. There's where you really,
It could get,
it's going to be tough. I mean, a classroom, there's 0 social distance. There's nothing you can really move around in 4th and 5th grade.
but if we can, what you have is
It's where your
teachers.
numbers come back.
Yeah, that's one thing, and also, the cloth face coverings, some of the interactions kids have, that, none of the touching and staying away from each other, whether don't, when back in normal times, you might walk down the hall and see a kid, give a high five or whatever, just trying to keep some of that interaction away.
You see, I believe that since we've started back, and it happens everywhere, you get a little lax on that. Your numbers have been low, and I think we let you guard down a little bit. All that work we did early on and marking everything, I've heard stories that, it just happens, we don't have anybody here, we can crowd, the classroom size is smaller, or maybe you can go down the hall or something's a little different. Well, really, you have to tighten the belt again. And probably have to come from your end, because people, they get careless and reckless, we all do. And if they go back to school, there's no room for error right now, especially in 4th and 5th grade.
And that speaks to, Mr. Cook, to the idea of leaving the Chromebooks out there. But we don't know. This is going to be a new venture for us. It's going to be very much like the August 17th. What's going to happen? Now, I will tell you, I talked to Susan Hayes, Randolph County Public Health today, and I asked her, about, and the spread of this through the elementary level kids is way less. And so as long as one of the recommendations was trying to make sure we're keeping them, it's not among the kids as much as it is coming from adults to kids. And so there is the concern as it goes to middle and high, and the spread from students is, so did talk to her a little bit about that today as well.
Does she think smaller kids can like carry it home, or?
No, she was more concerned of it being exposed to it from adults.
I will tell you real quick, one thing that does worry me, I'm worried about the fact that, you know, we've had cases now in the elementary schools, and what are you seeing, 30, 40, 30, 25, 30 people home, 15 people home, like 2 to 1 case, you know, that when you do the tracing. It's quite possible if you've got a whole school, you may have to close an elementary school. I mean, that could happen. And I think that's something people would have to consider. You know, I think you have a lot of parents, yes, let's go back to school. You know, they're looking at it, oh, I can work, you know, and I get it.
Well, I think that's a chance they all
That's a
take,
chance they're gonna have to
even
take.
now, with only just small groups, you could get a call in a
That's
day.
true, but if you get a call and you have, it hits like it did at Trinity High School, and you have to close, you know, you better be prepared to go home for 14 days, because it can happen.
I got to, Fred, I'm gonna dig back in the archives, and I'm gonna agree with Fred about 3 meetings ago. They're doing social distancing at school, but at Creekside Park down in the AT area, every night, there's hundreds of kids up there playing ball, volleyball, hundreds, and their parents are sending them up there. So I think the most social distancing they do is at school. But I agree with what, I think that's probably the most social distancing. I do agree, I think we still have to offer remote. I think we have to be, I mean, there are people that are legitimately concerned, and, you know, they do have issues with it, they're scared. Some people are still scared about it. You know, you do have to be concerned. COVID is real. But at the same time, I think we need to offer the opportunity to get back in the classroom. We need to offer that, because, like I said, they can't, you know, some of the same folks that are telling me that, you know, you don't put us back in school, but then I see them at the volleyball game.
Yeah.
And their kids are out there playing volleyball. I said, you can't do both. So I think you need that option. I think parents need that options. Teachers need some options with remote, but we do need to get back in school.
Well, and to that point, one of the things, and Susan Hayes has been extremely supportive of our school system and what we've been trying to do, and she's a tremendous teammate of mine. One of the things she said today is, as long as the parents have the option of remote, because I asked her, I said, what do you feel about this? And she said, well, you know, it's less likely to happen in the younger kids. And she said, as long as you've got the option of remote for parents to choose, then that was one that she stressed, having that error. And that's that's what I searched around a lot after the announcement on Thursday, and I can tell you, it was the state's intent that option for remote was still there. It's been written different ways. Elizabeth Troutman sent me something today she found, because I looked to find it, and I just couldn't see it. And I asked the education advisor of the governor's office for something. He sent me something today, Jeff Coltrane. So the state has not said, they really are pushing to still have that remote, and we need to do that. So and hearing the comments from Ms. Hayes today, we're totally in that direction as well.
One follow-up, are we talking to staff? Because, like I said, I don't want to discount anybody's concern. You know, staff, employee, child, parent. Is our principals, are they kind of talking to their staff, kind of get a feel? I'm sure they are, but maybe you can speak to this about how the staff feels, because you may have someone that does have underlying conditions, and they said, I just don't need to be here. Can I be remote? Can I be that remote teacher? And, you know, and I hope that we talk to staff, because there are people that have conditions, you know, that's legitimate. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes, we ran we went through and looked at accommodations for everybody that had concerns. We did that back before school started. And I'll say this to you, and to anybody tuned in tonight, you know, as this thing has gone on, I haven't really thought about it as, yeah, I'm not thought about it as success as much as it is say thank you to people. Because I know we have people in schools right now who are nervous, but they're helping us. And I don't want to come across as insensitive to their level of anxiety to being in school. And so what I think has been appropriate for me to say is thank you, not look at us. We've offered, we've provided where conditions or situations warranted accommodations. Our HR department worked on that. So now I will say this, if we had the teacher teaching 100% remote students, they would be on campus. They just wouldn't be with students. We talked about that when we kind of opened that playbook for creativity. We talked about it that way with principals as when it was shared with them on the 10th. I think it was in that email. But
About flexibility.
yeah, or maybe it was the 6th when the email. I can't remember which email mentioned that, but you would have, and then you're probably going to, if I'm a principal, you know, I'm probably going to who might be the most comfortable with the remote instruction. However, we can't let everybody stop because we don't know when everybody's going to do remote instruction if we have to send a school home or a grade level home. So we send a school home, we've sent groups home. There's another piece, we may at some point have to just send a grade level home. And so we're going to be we're going to watch everything and do the best we can with each situation. But I can't tell you it's always going to be a group or a school. There may be a time when it's just a grade level.
I had a couple questions, and maybe jumping ahead, and you may have this, but so we do send kids back 5 days in elementary school. I know we have the law says we've got to have so many kids in K through 3, and there's no possibility that we'll overload this class where we can come up with a virtual teacher. Because, you know, my question I've received from some teachers, you know, say it's second grade, they got 16 kids in there. All right, so they ain't going to do virtual because they're full. That teacher would not have to do no virtual, correct?
If that's 16 students, yeah, that's where we would have, you would be a face-to-face teacher versus the virtual.
Right.
If we can make it work. You know, the biggest thing, Mr. Bowles, is this. Whether you have a teacher with 100% virtual class, like all the students are virtual, or they're all face-to-face, or some are virtual, some are face-to-face, the class size rule for K3 applies.
Okay, K3. Okay, so we get 4 or 5. You know, that's where, you know, I want to watch it. I don't want to overload this teacher here who say, you know, yeah, you can't have 40 kids in there. But, you know, putting her with 25 or 30 kids, well, she ain't to the limit. Then she has to do virtual too. You're overloading her, putting more work on her, and she's got to do virtual. I mean, that's where we've got to watch. If we do this, then we even it out. We don't need to overload this teacher with virtual and face-to-face, then you got one teacher over here just doing virtual.
Well, that's
If we don't watch it, we can overload this face-to-face person.
Well, and the elementary principals are submitting plans to Kathy and Lynette now to look at that. And in fact, to your point, a principal just sent me a grid this weekend and said, hey, I just want to show you what my numbers look like. This was in the work prior to, you know, we were looking at that point, are there B-Day seats that A-Day kids might be able to start using because they're not being used for B-Day? But yes, that's going to be something. That's the very reason why I was not really interested early on in stepping out at the beginning that way, because didn't know if you set up a virtual class, and that's the reason why people need to declare now, because once we set that virtual class, 100% remote students. We can't have them all of a sudden decide, oh, I want to come back, because now that takes the kindergarten or the first grade class size over, and we don't have a teacher to pick up that and get that class size, and then you've got the 100% remote class has gone from starting out at 18, the next thing you turn around, only has 10 kids, then you start having problems. That's why the declaration of remote or face-to-face is going to have to happen now.
And say if we go back and you do have classes where full face-to-face, I know all this extra cleaning, I know these teachers are still going to be doing temperatures and all this stuff. And, you know, right now, yes, they having to do it, it's a little easier, because we know they don't have a class with 25, 30 kids in it. All right, so we go back face-to-face, and we have classes of 25, 30. Who's going to help this teacher pick up this slack? I mean, you know, yeah, we talked about in the past and how much more work it was going to be. But let's face it, you got classes out there with 6 kids in it right now. So it makes it a little easier now. But when you start doubling and tripling this size, you know, it's got to be some help in there. You can't expect this teacher to be a custodian and a teacher with a full class.
Most of the temperatures are checked outside
That's
the
why it's
building.
gonna take time, we just can't do it.
Well, that's, and to your point, to your point, Mr. Bowles, that's why we can't, you can't just do this tomorrow, because we've got to have some time, because it's going to be, I remember the first couple of days, all of a sudden, when they got past the first couple of days, I heard principals say, oh, those checks are going so much quicker now.
Yes.
But you're right, the volume's going to pick up. It's going to have a little bit of a bottleneck at the beginning of the day, early on for several days. It'll start hopefully easing, but you're exactly right. Now, also remember that we've at least pulled one teacher assistant out to do the family support room. So we some things can fall back, and actually on one day a week 2 are being pulled because of that Wednesday transition. So there is going to be some added volume of students or numbers of students is going to cause a little bit of a slowdown, and it's going to take some while to adjust. That's why, you know, this can't happen.
No, we can't. I mean, you know, here, you know, everybody wants to go back 5 days. I've talked to some teachers who wants to go 4 days, where they still have 1 day virtual if they got to do virtual also. And I, you know, we know our emails have been blowed up the last few days since this come out, and parents said, oh, get kids back. We got teachers want the kids back, but like you said, they got to sit down, the parents and the teachers and the students got to sit down and realize this is going to take a little time. We can't say October 4th, 5th, boom, we're going back. I mean, you know, we had over the summer playing for the beginning of this school year. Now they can't think, you know, we're going to switch directions in 2 weeks.
You know, the worst thing we could do, we worked so hard to get it right, to send them back like we did.
Right.
And I personally think the worst thing we could do is to rush it and not do it right, and then get egg on our face. You know, I like the idea of the end of the first quarter. You know, then you can play slate. But one thing I just really need to say, so I'll feel better about tonight, it's bothered me ever since this announcement come out. The governor put it in our lap once again, and I'm thinking, you know, we stopped school, March 14th, with maybe 2 cases in Randolph County. We sent everybody home. We closed up Randolph County, we closed up North Carolina. You know what? In October, we're going to send them back because we have an election coming up November the 3rd. And you know what? That's for the wrong reason. I have absolutely no respect for the governor of North Carolina because that's wrong. You know what? Whatever you believe. If you believe, I mean, we have football stadiums with no fans there. We have restaurants still not open inside. I mean, I was at the train museum in Spencer. Kids can't even ride a train. The place is about to go broke. You have people suffering. You know what? Don't make a decision just for political reasons. And that's all this is, and that's wrong. If he really believed in his heart what he's been preaching this whole time, he wouldn't make this decision. Do I disagree with this decision for our sake? you know what, we've all talked it the whole time, but we want to do it right. And you know, the virus, it can happen. There's something out there, you know, many of you know, my youngest son was perfectly healthy, and he caught a cold and flu-like symptoms, and it turned into a virus, and it attacked the left side of his heart. And for 18 days he was in the hospital, and 12 of those days we didn't know if he was going to make it or not. You know, it has to be done right for me. I cannot take a chance on being a part of watching somebody's child or somebody, you know, if I don't feel right. That's why I'm upset with the governor, because I don't feel right. I mean, I would never go and get something I believe here just for any kind of election. And I'm sorry, you know what, I can get crucified tomorrow, but that's the reason this was done, is politics. And that's I'd be ashamed. But I hope we can get it right, be as careful as we can, because you know what, I'll never forget the day when I looked at a doctor and I said, you know, he was 20 years old. I said, he's going to make it, isn't he? And the doctor had tears in his eyes, and he says, I don't know, we're doing all we can. I don't want to see anybody go. That's a tough deal. I mean, that's, you know, I worry about it. I mean, you know, I know it could be no more than people say the flu, and you know, maybe they're right. I don't know. I don't know where we stand anymore. I mean, we stopped the world with what, 2 cases, and now I don't know what to do anymore. I really don't. Is it worse than the flu? I guess it depends on if you have something else going on, and I'm confused. I really am. I mean, we spend all this money to get it right, to start back to school, then boom, right out of the blue, we get a decision last week, we're going to let elementary kids go back. I mean, boom, let's just send them all back up. I mean, I don't know. I just had to say that because it's been burning me up. I feel better, ran over.
Gary, I agree with you about make sure we have to take time to do it right. As far as waiting to the 22nd, you know, the end of the quarter, I guess that's the end of the quarter, correct?
22nd.
Is it?
22nd is the first day of second quarter.
Okay, all right. So I understand, you know, waiting to that point, that doesn't mean quite as much as far as that date in the elementary school, I guess, as the middle school, high school. That's of course not necessarily a different classroom, but I mean, I understand what you're saying. The main thing is, it's not, oh, do it on the 22nd because it's the end of the beginning of the next quarter. It's more, if that's how long it takes to get it right, that's when I do it that way. Dr. Gary, I do have some things that I wanted to ask you, but you want to present the recommendation that you have first?
If y'all would like me to, I'll share with you what I'm thinking,
Okay.
and then we can work back through it. And Mr. Burgess, to your point, the 22nd, looking for a landmark, okay? Looking for a landmark, and that's where we landed with that. But so recommendations would be students coming back, all K-5 students coming back no later than, we'd start this no later than the 22nd of October. And that will give staff time to address those concerns, do some stuff they're already looking at right now by creating up some 100% remote students, and maybe there'll be some other things that haven't been identified that they'll run into. Based on review with staff and what it's going to take to make this work, really, we can't turn this around and do it well before the 12th of October, because we're going to need some information that's coming this week, as you know, from some decisions from parents. I also want to point out something that I kind of had to get back and remember how we got to this point. Pre-K is under the Division of Child Development and Early Education. It's under the child care regulations. Pre-K could be going every day, and could have been going every day since August 17th. But to me and staff, that was a very difficult scene if you weren't going to let K-5 go every day, to have them. That's why we've been where we are. So the recommendation would be, do we bring pre-K back whenever we bring K-5 back at the same time, 5 days a week. The next item The governor, and we mentioned this, he did not specifically address remote instruction, but it is the intent of the state that we have it for any child that's not comfortable coming back, that we provide remote instruction. Now, here's where we get into some big data points that we need. Number one, we have a deadline of September 25. That needs to stay in place. Let's take K-5 away right now. Middle school and high school parents know that as of September 25, they need to make a decision. Is their child will be engaged in the A-Day, B-Day format, whether they're A-Day, B-Day, 2 days a week, 3 days remote, or they're going to be 100% remote instruction. And whatever they choose, their child will be on that plan until we get outside of the pandemic time. So that's not going to change. If the board so chooses to do something with K-5, I would recommend that we keep the elementary parents still held to the deadline of Friday, but they're not choosing about A-Day, B-Day, 2 days and 3 days remote, or 100% remote. Their choices have changed. By Friday, they need to say 100% remote or 5 days a week. Okay? And I say that because, and we can move that back for elementary parents if we need to. But every time we move it back, it's probably adding another week to bring a K-5 back. So if we keep the 25th and just change what the two choices are for elementary parents, October 12th will be okay. But if we're going to move that deadline for elementary parents back, then we would need to move on back to October 19 or beyond. Again, elementary parents, whatever they choose for their child, the child would follow that plan for the rest of the time while we're under this pandemic. One thing I did add, just listening since September 10, one thing that I added was once people make their choice, we'd allow them one move until the pandemic's over, but the only move would be if they choose to come from remote face-to-face, not the other way. Because we do have some people who have shared that I'm not comfortable coming back yet, but I know you told me if I choose it, I'm there for good till the pandemic's over. So that's just a piece I added there as maybe an option for parents, because we know the direction we're hoping to get everybody back to over time. So so really, again, middle school, high school parents under this recommendation would still be saying by Friday, I want A-Day, B-Day, whatever my child is, 2 days a week on campus, 3 days remote, or my child's going to be 100% remote. Elementary parents, they'd still be making a decision by Friday because they were planning to make a decision. Now it's going to change 100% remote or 5 days a week. And so that would be my recommendation. And I would just say this. September 25 is big because our staff cannot continue to operate with people changing in and out of remote and on-site doing the A-Day, B-Day. I've been with several principals in the last week who have literally pulled out lists of the changes from being with taking their A-Day slot or going remote. And we've got to slow that down. So really, September 25 is a big one for our staff. So that would be that's the recommendation. We can mold this how we want. Like I say, I want to go back to the earliest we think we could possibly be ready will be October 12th. I hear the board loud and clear. I've heard it from multiple board members in the last few days. Whatever we do, this is what I've got received from y'all. And I even was hearing it all through the spring, all through the summer in many different ways. Whatever we do is do right. So, October 22nd, May not be as quick as some people would like that. I can assure you there won't be a day without a lot of work done, because of even get ready for October 22nd.
Do you think that, I'm just throwing this out there, and I'm sitting here thinking as a parent, it's kind of torn. I know September 25th is a big day, but, you know, you had a game changer last week when it was 5 days or go back to school. Do you think they need 2 or 3 more days? I mean, I just feel like,
I'm fine with
I don't
it.
know. Do you think in September leave it like it is?
I would. People know it, it was soon to get back and change.
But you did get one change.
You do get one change, but I'm
Yeah.
saying, they know.
I'm just saying, think that's good? I'm just throwing it being the devil's advocate.
Well, today, Mr. Cook, I'll just say this to you. And all through the night, last night, I was, it's September 25, this is changing what they're choosing between, but with them knowing that they were going to make some kind of choice, and we told them that on September 10, you know, I'm not going to tell you that everything we do is going to make everybody happy. What I'll tell you is this, and I tell anybody listening, I would never do anything to intentionally make somebody unhappy or put them in a tough situation. But also at this point, have got to intervene for staff. We have some staff members doing unbelievable stuff, and I don't want to lose that. You know, maybe every staff member had experience the coming and going in their classroom. So maybe this isn't the thing that gives them relief. But I've heard enough to know that we've had a lot that they look up one day and there's students in, and then they're, so I would be very careful with the phone message. We'll get some out tomorrow and change. The biggest issue now is changing the choice for the elementary. That's it. And one side of the choice. One side staying the same. It's just now we're not talking about 2 days a week and 3 remote. We're talking about 5 days a week.
So does that kind of, I want to ask a dumb question. I guess it'd just be me, wouldn't it, if I did? People would understand. They would understand. If you go back to 5 days, well, that will relieve a lot of tension on the elementary teachers that struggle with Canvas, and am I correct in that?
Getting
Let them actually teach without.
Getting students back in the classroom is going to help with that. If I'm a principal and I have, you know, to Mr. Burrow's point, you may have one school that has enough remote students that you can do things. You may have some grade levels and not other grade levels. But we also have to honor the class size rule. But I can imagine if I'm a principal, I'm probably going to find who's interested in doing that 100% remote. If we can have that. Now, I'm not saying that the number's going to be perfect. There may still be a case, or there may be multiple cases, where a teacher may still have a class of some remote and some non-remote. But I will tell you, the principals and their staff members are going to figure this out. And this is one of those times where I have to get out of the way and let them run with their creativity. And we're going to. And we're going to guide them.
You think subs will be an issue?
I don't know, Mr. Cook. I hadn't had a real good read on that.
I didn't know if they were afraid to, or what their feelings were. I didn't know.
I don't know, Mr. Cook. I think every day, you know, today was day 25. I was exchanging an email last night with a reporter, and the reporter said, "Wow, tomorrow's day 25 or something." I'm not quoting it, but I think the days are beginning to roll upon. We're beginning to roll through the school year, and I don't know that, Mr. Cook, but I'll tell you this: the longer we hang in there, and the longer we keep bringing kids to school, and the longer we stick to our game plan. And our game plan at the beginning was, let's have school when we can have school. when things pop up, we might address a small group, we might address a whole class, we might have to address a whole school. As long as it's in our game plan, the longer we hang in there, some of the things you're talking about, like are subs comfortable or uncomfortable, I don't know that. I'll tell you this, when we've had situations, and principals, Andrea Haynes and Todd Lowe have been working with principals to get subs in situations. And, I say small group, class, whole school. And then here we are, day 25, and it wasn't day 25, it was last week one day. Actually, it was maybe a little bit earlier than last week, talking to some teachers. I realized, you know what, you better keep an eye on this. You might have to send a grade level home. There was a situation I dealt with where maybe he got tough on a grade level, and I didn't realize that. So that puts another thing. So the longer we hang in there.
I know the health department, Susan Hayes, been great to work with. But I know you worked really hard, and you took it as a personal task to chase down everything you could to make sure our kids were safe, and you did it right. Because I'm sure we had people, since we was one of the first systems to jump out, probably rooting against us. I mean, possibly. I mean, you know what? Hey, you don't want them. We stayed home. But you know what? You did a great job. We blasted, and can you hold out?
Yeah.
I mean, to chase these, we call them chasing rabbits. Can you chase it? I just want to say one thing before I forget too. I know it's jumping off, but I had some people that had called, like the have a help desk on all this stuff, like virtual, kids doing it from home and all. And I asked Dr. Gainey one night, like, who was manning that and all, and some of you guys in the back, Dale, I did not realize, I just want to touch on it, I don't think any of us know how many calls they have handled. I mean, it's unbelievable what you guys have done and answered the questions. I just feel like it needed to be addressed up here tonight. And I meant to do it earlier, but I didn't want to let you know that we don't appreciate it, and we know how overworked you guys have been, and certainly appreciate you stepping up to the plate on that. I think that needs to be addressed. Thank you, guys.
And one of the challenges with all this is you guys continue to wrestle with what to do, what not to do. One of the challenges with all this is there's not a perfect answer. There's not a right answer. And Mr. Cook, somebody kind of got me a while ago, and a couple of weeks ago, said, what do you mean by making a run at this? I don't know what I mean by that, other than trying as hard as we can. And I think everybody in this system has been rooting for one thing, and that's what's right for kids. And so we'll keep working at it. So that's the recommendation I have for you guys. We can get this rolling. I do. I really feel strongly in the need, if we're fine, I really feel strongly in Friday being a decision day because it can slow down some of this movement that is impacting our
Dr. Gainey, I have just one comment about this recommendation. The purpose, the deadline is, and what we talked about is what's been happening in the school system is kids jumping back and forth. I don't like the idea that they can still make one move.
Okay.
If they decide, they decide. Because it's almost going against what you're trying to do by saying you can't jump back and forth, but by the way, we'll give you one more. I just don't support that. The rest of the board may, but that's just, it kind of just doesn't look right.
I can see where he sort of comes from. You want them back in school, so you give them opportunity to come back, but not go back to virtual. And I understand what Mr. Cutler saying too. You're going to draw a line, draw a line. If you want to address that, then I have a question for you. I've been patiently waiting on it.
Well, and Mr. Cutler, that was added just in the feedback I heard, and quite frankly, probably 90% of the feedback I've received after that announcement on the 10th was that very, from what if I want to stay on remote, but I really want to bring my child back. So, but I can see it. Again, there's no perfect answer here, and I respect your side of that too, because see, I'm torn with, I want to make sure we slow this down for our classroom teachers and our principals and staff who are dealing with this.
My question is about pre-K. Pre-K, they being open for option A since 8/17. And I know pre-K, we're dealing with smaller numbers. Transportation probably not as big as a deal as the whole elementary. And if anybody needs structure, it's these pre-K kids. And there's some of the pre-K kids are already behind the curve anyway. And they probably need to get back in school as quick as any elementary student. And like I say, I know smaller numbers. And if we could get them, if we wait, but y'all know what we're gonna do. But if you wait October 22nd to bring all elementary schools, any way we can get these pre-K kids back in before then. They really do need to be back in school 5 days a week.
The problem is, one of the drivers is we've got to have time we're going to have to get them to make choices too, and also redo bus routes. That's going to be our challenge, Mr. Wolves, make sure we have that.
Is there a big number of pre-K kids that ride buses?
Don't know that.
I'm being sarcastic because I know you couldn't give me that answer, but sometimes we might get an option. If you want your kid to come back 5 days a week, you supply transportation or something. Because I've had a lot of pre-K kids, especially pre-K kids who might be EC or something, and they want their kids back in school.
All right, I got a couple of things. Let's go with the easy ones first. First, I want to say this. I'll say this to the parents and all the parents who are saying need to be back, and I'm in agreement with you. I understand. You know what? Help us out. Find a way to get your kid to school without the bus. That would help out a whole lot. I mean, everybody wants to get back to school. And I know it's going to make a few people mad to say that, but it would be a benefit to our elementary schools if we had more car riders than bus riders, right? Okay, all right.
It would, one of the concerns.
I understand, yeah, but
the bus is going to be a concern.
I know the bus is going to be a concern, but if we had 10 on the bus that normally would ride the bus and say, no, I'm going to find a ride somehow, and it would help out in places. So that's not for us in there. A couple of the easy ones. First of all, cafeteria. Are they eating in the classroom still?
Yes. Yes.
All right.
Continue that.
Yes.
All right. So we'll continue that. I assume obviously this certainly applies to the Randolph 5th grade academy too.
Yes. Yes, it does.
So tell me, how was the 5th grade academy? Is it as far as this 6th through 8th there?
It's like location.
Yeah.
It's in that main center hall. When you come in and the office is right there on the right,
Okay.
if you walk, there's a hall there's a hall that goes towards the cafeteria. You walk past that hall, you got a computer lab right on that corner. Once you get into those doors, that's where Dennis and Tracy put it originally, because it was kind of its own. Dennis Hamilton, before he went to the high school, and Tracy Dawes, they put it there because it was somewhat secluded from the rest of the school, and it's been there ever since. There's a set of wood doors, Mr. Burgess. I don't know if they stay open or not, but they are capable of kind of shutting that area off.
I am all for being able to have a staff member to do remote only. When I first heard this, when said, is this the way we can do this? I don't think I understood all the different problems that would be involved with that, because it made sense. Oh, good, you got this, she's going to do all the third grade, and so it seems a whole lot easier on the surface. The problem, kind of thinking forward now, I'm a third grade teacher, or it doesn't matter what grade, it doesn't matter. And we have someone that tests positive, whatever it is, and we quarantine for 14 days. So it's a fourth grade class, we got 25, 30 kids in that classroom. We quarantine 10 to 15 of them. So now who's teaching those kids remotely? I mean, so now am I teaching them remotely and teaching the ones that are still left in the classroom?
Well, the whole class would be sent home. If you
Yeah, the
teach
whole
25
class.
Is that what
kids,
we're doing right now? We're
And-
saying that
Whole class would be-
one kid in a class tests positive,
Yeah,
send
whole
everybody.
class.
everybody goes home.
Yeah, the whole class.
So you would
The
send
teacher.
home 25 kids
Okay.
and the teacher for 2 weeks.
All right. So,
So then
we
that
have,
teacher would be responsible.
Yeah, the teacher would be,
At that time, the teacher would become, am I right?
would become a remote teacher, and,
For her class.
and that would be the case of the remote teacher not on site. And we would use remote work,
Right.
and we would work from that avenue.
I do see a huge problem with the fourth and fifth grade. Like, I don't know, Gary, if you said that, or somebody did. I mean, there are some fourth and fifth grade classrooms that have as many as 30 kids in the classroom. And obviously, we know there is there's going to be very little social distancing at 20. At 30 now it's going to be, even less. I think that is a very big concern. And we do still have teachers out there obviously that have a real fear of that many kids in the classroom. And that is like I said before, whether it's warranted or not, because with what we hear out there from the experts, you don't know if it's warranted or not, but the one thing we do know is that the fear is real. So that is a concern. But then when we get back to teachers being remote, can we, because every grade level, every school is a little bit different, we can't guarantee that we're going to have a remote teacher at every grade level, every school. So in that case where you got the 25, 30 kids in a classroom, I just don't, there may not be a remote teacher. If there was, well, we can't put 50 kids in a classroom. If also there's going to be 15 that want to be remote, but we can't put 45 over there with that fourth grade, fifth grade class. I don't know how we can do 30. So I know we can, those numbers. So I think having the remote teacher, I'm all for it, but I just think there's going to be situations, and I hate, there's going to be situations where it's just not going to work out. And I do hate, and we're doing it now 2 out of the last 3 months, at least as a board, that we're making decisions on something that it is a no-win situation as far as there's, no matter what we decide tonight, there's 100 scenarios that, oh, well, what if this happens, And if we left it exactly the way it is, there's 100 scenarios to, well, what if this happens? So, but I am concerned with that large of grade, and I'm just really thinking in some way, no one I know is even talked about, and I'm really just thought about here whenever we really just talking about how large those classes are. Is it even possible to do something that would do K-3 one way and 4 or 5 different? Or is that just like, boy, we really screw things up?
Could you create, like, for example, I know this is crazy, but sometimes you think outside the box. Could you create, like, you have a gym or something apart on the stage? Could you create a classroom, like move one to a bigger area if you had a lot more kids where you could space it out?
Yeah.
Or take a you know, like a stage or, I mean, that is would be popular, but you spread out a little corner of the cafeteria, you're not using it to eat, could you,
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you have to think outside the box, you can space
You
out
have to be
kids.
creative and come up
You're
with
not
That's
gonna eat, could you do that?
Well-
I mean, we may have to look at different ways to, if you
Before you,
like Fred's
before you answer that, Dr. Ganey, could we get a list, Marty may have it, of kids that are currently A day and B day? Because kids that are remote right now, I don't think they're all said will come back.
There's one coming back once you think.
Well,
There's a lot of them in the last.
For 5
But
days?
could we get a list
Yeah.
of who's currently A day and B day though? If we've
On
got
Friday,
some-
you can have the master list, I mean, you have the actual list.
Yeah, but I mean, at least give us an idea, if the school has a 500 student capacity, and we only have 200 kids going to the school.
Right.
I mean, I'm hearing teachers saying they got 3 and 4 kids in the classroom,
I think there's one
and especially,
coming back.
I mean, it may be, but I mean, at least we'd have an idea,
they'll come.
we'd have sort of an idea. I mean, we're throwing 50 out there, and we don't know that either, though. That's imaginary.
Dr. Ganey, aren't we already staffed at elementary school levels based on ADM? It doesn't really matter how many
Yeah.
is remote and how many is in face-to-face.
The question, the thing you gotta be careful, Mr. Burgess is right. We have to be willing to accept, and the principals know that going into what they're working on, that you could have a grade level with 100% remote teacher, and you could have a grade level that doesn't have enough remote kids to justify a teacher with only the 100% remote kids. So, and it could be in the school. You may have one school that the percentage is way higher about coming to campus. So, but you also have to you can't just split that class because you only have one teacher. And the class sizes are bigger in 4-5. You know, the class sizes have gone up from 4-12. My colleagues and I have been pushing against that for years now, that you're setting low class sizes at K3 at the expense of 4-12. So we will be having that same conversation if we were talking about bringing the middle school kids back or the high school kids back. So to your point, we just got to see how it plays out. That's why we've got to get the principals, we've got to get the data. Because there's really not, it's going to be a school by school decision. Now the part about the buses, I don't.
I'm making people mad by telling
We
me.
might, you're fine. I saw Marty was sitting back there, I don't know, he was squirming. So, but, I mean, we might have buses zigzagging all through the county, but, we might have some kids we're bringing the wrong day before it's over, but oh well.
You know that, Fred, I got 10 texts mad at you, and I told you to buy the gas. So you
Take care of your gas
Take care of the gas station, yes. Well, I lost my train of thought. Oh, okay, so back to the thing that we cannot, it's not a cut and dry case to be able to say, all right, here, this 3rd grade, this 5th grade, whatever, at all schools, whatever, we're gonna have remote, and I mean, as far as having a remote teacher, and, we say, well, some may not have enough to warrant. Well, how many is to warrant? If I'm teaching 25 kids in my 4th grade class, but I have 2 remote, it doesn't matter if I got 2 or I got 10 there. I mean, now I still have teaching 2 classes, and now 5 days a week. And I think that personally, I'm tend to lean more toward 4 days and still keep Wednesday as it is, because we cannot guarantee that a teacher is not going to be teaching both remote and in person. I believe, well, and all of you know where I stand on this, I believe we have put a lot of work on teachers, especially the elementary school teachers. And the 5-day plan potentially puts even more work on the teachers, because now, at least I had Wednesday to kind of take care of getting the remote, taking care of the remote kids, and let's face it, maybe even a chance to breathe just a second. And now I don't even have that, and I still am teaching both ways, remote and in person. So I tend to kind of lean a little bit more toward keeping Wednesday like it is.
I mean, that's what I was saying earlier, we just don't hold lunch on these teachers. I mean, like Fred said, you know, if I got to teach remote for 2 kids, it's got to be some way somebody else can do that. They put no load on certain teachers.
Well, and that's where I think the creativity on the campuses is going to come into play. If you, Mr. Boyles, if you don't have a number enough to make a class, it is going to depend. It's going to depend on, because you have X number of students per teacher. And so it's not that different really to a, you know, as a high school principal, sometimes I had to make decisions on what classes made and which ones didn't. I have a class with 5 children. I had the great honor of getting to cancel a section AP physics one year at Leesburg Road High School. That went over well for the 5 kids that signed up for that section.
Well,
It didn't go well.
But you get back to what Gary was saying earlier when he got on one of my traditional soapboxes, that, you know, if they did this 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago before school started, you could have gave them the choice, virtual or in face-to-face. This would be over. We wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation. Like you said, as far as the 25th, where you gonna come, school or not, that's got to be done where you can make these decisions. We can stay here all night and go over all these scenarios. We can have another 5-hour board meeting like we did 2 months ago. Coronavirus will be dead and gone by the time we get all those scenarios.
If we could end it in 5 days,
you know.
5 hours, we'll do it then. So.
You know,
How effective is the Wednesday cleaning been? Now, we haven't mentioned cleaning tonight.
It's been there, but I don't know that it's played any, it's played a, remember, part of that was there was no way to, you couldn't keep rolling A, B in the next week, but you know, the cleaning on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is equally, you know, I wouldn't say that the Wednesday's been just knock it out of the park, a bigger day than the other one's cleaning, if that makes sense. I think they've all played a role. So, gave it a chance. Yes, and we're having, I mean, we still have, I think last time I looked, those extra ones, we had 21 or 22 of them still vacant. So we're still struggling with that. They've been posted a while, so, that complicates things.
I mean, the whole thing is like what Fred was talking about, overloading these teachers and all. That's where our principals and staff, they gonna have to do their work and make sure they're fair and give these teachers the breaks they need. They just don't need to be overloading just certain teachers. I mean, no, this ain't a perfect fix. It's not gonna be a perfect fix. Will it be 100% fair? Nobody ever says 100% fair way things are done. But we got to make a decision, what we're gonna do, and do it like we did before. Everybody ain't gonna be happy. So, you know.
What if you, just thinking outside the box, I mean, it's a whole, once again, parents won't like what I'm fixing to say at all. But, you know what, thinking about the kids, thinking about everybody, the whole thing, I mean, you could actually, Fred does have a valid point, you could jump into like a 4-day thing and see how that's going, and then you could.
We can go from 4 to 5. Easier than go from 5 to 4.
Like at first of the year. I mean, you know what, we're bringing all the kids back, guess what, flu season starts. I mean, that's just amazing, the timing. I mean, I'm not blaming that on us, but.
I think you can come back fine. I think that's just. And I mean, I think in most schools, it's gonna work out that, and I mean, talking from a teacher, I want my kids 5 days a week, because I'm already behind. I mean, I'm already behind, it's gonna be October, and I'm already behind 9 weeks, teaching A's and B's and people at home and all this, you know. I think these teachers are ready to go, and I think that the schools could be creative enough to help these teachers as far as the remote kids go. I'm thinking there's not gonna be, I think the remote's gonna go way down, when we say 5 days a week,
I think,
you know.
I think it already has, a lot of them have already said they're gonna drop. I mean, a lot of who have been remote have said that we're going to come back full-time if we're there more than, you know, in that 4 or 5 days. I do think that 4 is, so I just think I mean, Sharon, you say, oh, you know, I'm already getting behind.
Yep.
And now all of a sudden,
6 months.
I know, but I'm saying that, going that classroom teacher is behind, but now all of a sudden, all right, now you're behind, and, okay, you did have Wednesday do all remote, and now you're still doing 5 days remote and 5 days in classroom.
But you might not be doing remote. Most of these teachers are gonna be in class, teaching their group of children, or remote.
Let's talk about mom or dad who are at home behind on the mortgage, behind on their car payment, because they can't go back to work, not being 5 days. If we put them on 4 days, it's just useless at that point too.
They still can't do something.
They still cannot find gainful employment probably 4 days a week. A lot of the initiative is to get the economy going back again for people to get gainful employment. We have to think about our parents.
These kids need to be back in school.
We have to think about our parents too.
I agree.
I think, I understand, and I'm not, I mean, no one is saying, oh, you know, we don't want the kids back in school. You know, even teachers who are scared to death are saying, you know, I want them back in school. They just want them back in there safely. You know, safely maybe sometime in 2022 for all we know. But I don't want to keep jumping around anywhere, but back to it. I know something you kind of added in here in the last day or so about what Todd was saying, giving them a change as far as to change from 100% remote back to being in the classroom. I don't know how I feel about that, to be honest with you. I think I got to put a lot more thought into that. I kind of agree with what Todd's saying, but I think they have a problem though, if you're going to give them a choice, I have a problem not giving the choice to someone who is in the classroom 4 or 5 days to say, never mind, I'm going back to remote. I mean, if I'm a 4th grade, if my kid's in 4th grade, and the other 4th grade classroom, there's a case breaks out, and my kid's still there, I'm like, no, never mind, Johnny, you're going to stay at home. So, according to that plan, you can't do that. Am I correct in that? You know, I've decided I'm going to be there 4 or 5 days.
Well, it was simply a suggestion of flexibility, but the reality is everybody who is affected by a situation in the school is going to be, we're going to deal with them directly.
Right.
You know, so one of the things is if you're an exposure to a positive, you're getting an individual call.
Right.
By the time we notify all the other people, those people have already been put out for the 14 days. I just threw it out as an option.
No, I know.
I can live with it either way.
And I'm not.
That's the only way I've heard it, Mr. Bull, Mr. Burgess, is I'm not ready to go back yet,
Yeah.
but now you're telling me I can't go back at any time, you know, and that's the only reason why that's there. That can clearly drop from the recommendation.
Well, I'm not, maybe where Todd is, and I'm totally against it. I see what Todd's saying though, but I also see what that parent's saying. Well, I don't think I want them to be there. You know what? Turns out it actually is pretty good. Maybe they do want to do it. So, but I think you're gonna have a problem where if you have a parent that says, you know what? All of a sudden, for whatever reason, I don't feel comfortable with my kid being in school anymore. They're gonna pull them out, and what are we gonna do then? So they're counted absent every day? You have to see,
If you have a school shut down just because you've got more kids there, the whole school, and I was a parent,
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest with you, that's when I might look at taking them out and not bring them. I mean, it could happen.
right, so,
You're right.
so I think we're gonna have, I don't think you can offer it one way without offering both the other way to begin with. You know, and I don't know that I have an opinion right now, one way or another. That's a tough decision, I think. You know, I see most
They're
things.
saying circumstances may change.
I think, yeah.
You're a parent, you may feel different.
Yeah, and then, I mean, if you pull them out, what are we gonna do? We're going,
Cases.
yeah,
There also has to be a limit,
yeah.
because our
You can go
teachers,
back and forth.
our teachers and principals can't keep
It's not
dealing
fair
with
to
this.
them.
One of the things I've said to parents is, when they ask me, why did you do this? Well, you know, I watched for 4 weeks, and I really was hoping it would settle in more, but it was just a constant coming and going in some places, and it was just beyond. So, I think there's gotta be a limit. If you wanna give them one move, both, either way, I mean, that's, I'll follow your lead on that, but I don't think it cannot stay like it is.
No.
I mean,
Because
it can't. I mean, I've heard and talked to students and parents and all. And these parents, they won't take off a trip to Florida, guess what? My kids
We'll go
virtual
remote
this
for a
week,
and go on vacation.
they go to Florida. They want to take off and go, you know, to California. My kid's virtual this week. But now, he's gonna go back in school. It's happening every day in our school system. I've talked to the kids, I've talked to the parents. They know these people who's doing this. And it's not fair to our employees.
And I'd almost like to, I mean, if we did it, like, I mean, I guess you can leave anytime, but come back, I'd almost say, you have to wait until like the end of a quarter. Kind of, you know, instead of.
I mean,
Even
look,
if we're going to pick a day.
if we're gonna make a decision, we need to make a decision on Sunday. Like I said, we can go through every scenario of all we want to, we ain't accomplishing nothing. Whatever we decide, everybody ain't gonna be happy. What did we decide last time? Everybody wasn't gonna be happy. We don't know all the answers, we don't know any of the answers. Nobody did before.
There obviously is a consensus, it seems to be, in this, on this board, and even in the leadership within the administration, to go more than 2 days a week. I would just encourage the board members to consider 4 days a week rather than 5 right now. It's easier to go from 4 to 5 than it is 5 to 4 or 5 to 2. If you're, I assume if you're 5 days, are you still labeling them? I don't know if that's the right word or not, labeling an AB student?
Say that again.
no, there would be, we would be face to face or remote.
Yeah.
If there were 5, the AJB,
5
that
days.
yeah, elementary would be remote.
I think we can do 4 day, so if there is any kind of a desire to do a 4 day, I would like to see us keep Wednesday for the, what was it called, the family support plan. I'd like to see that kept on Wednesday. I think that has been a big help to our staff members. I do believe that if you do it 5 days a week, you're going to put you're going to put more pressure on a group of individuals who are already kind of pushed to the max now.
Mr. Burgess, and to your point, if you did 4 days, I wouldn't see any reason not to still have the same grouping, face to face or remote.
Board members, I'd like to remind you, you guys have a requirement to hold school X number of days. So when you say go 4 days, I hope you mean teach 5 days, but 1 day is not in-person teaching or something, because you don't have an option to not teach a day and get your days and hours
No, I mean, I don't think anybody's saying, oh, we'll go, everybody's got a day off on Wednesday. I don't think anybody was heading in that direction. But,
You gotta teach the kids.
I understand, we gotta teach, we understand, we're still teaching on Wednesday, and that's what Wednesday is. Wednesday is the remote day. It is, but I mean, you know, we've all, I mean, I'm gonna speak for myself. I'm sure you have too. We've talked to enough parents, enough teachers, and nobody wants to say it in public, but in public, say it all day long. The ones that are remote are not getting anything. They're only, the vast majority of the learning is done in the face-to-face. And so therefore, if I just think that doing the 4 days in person and 1 day remote is a better situation for our teachers, even though because I'm going to be pulled in a lot of directions on every day of the week, because I still have some students remotely that I've got to work with from their 5 days.
But you're saying, like, when you said 4 days, you were talking earlier, that you would be open to, maybe at the end of the year or something like that, you could always move it to 5.
Well, at the end of the year, it'd be next month. I mean,
You would like to get started to get a feel of it, and to get used to it, starting out on 4.
yes, 4 in-person days, I think, is
I mean,
solution.
like I say, that we used to be virtual, and you're just taking a little bit of pressure off of those teachers who's going to have to teach face-to-face and virtual too. I mean, there's no guarantee that we say, hey, we're going to go back to school, that boom, kindergarten through 3rd grade, it's going to be 16 kids in every class. You know, then if you got 15 kids person, you still have that teacher who's got to take time out in the day to teach that one kid virtual. And that just gives her something else she has to do amongst checking temperatures and wiping noses and everything else.
You know, one of your points, Dr. Gainey, is back in the first section, number 4, part C there, that very likely to re-roster students. I'm sorry, you've got to remain 100% remote. So that's just the, do you foresee any kind of plan where the kids that are there in person, that they'll have to be re-rostered to a different?
Absolutely.
Right.
If you re-roster, say, you take 17 students who declared 100% remote in 3rd grade, they go to teacher X, well, then we'd have to pull the face-to-face that might have been assigned to teacher X to another teacher. I think there'll be a lot of re-rostering even with that in itself in Power School. And then that's the part about too, opportunities for teachers to meet parents of new students, I think in many ways, and that's not ideal. Nobody wants to lose a teacher during the year and have to bring in a new teacher. Nobody wants that, or nobody wants to have more students than they anticipated at the beginning of the year and have to add a teacher, because then you have to figure out which students you pull from the teacher they were with. But there will be re-rostering of students somewhere. I mean, I think your point's valid, Mr. Burgess, in that everybody's not going to have the same number of 100% remote teachers. But this is for this very reason, where some people talk about having an academy to start out with. Well, to me, that was a little risky, because what happens when those children want to go back to face-to-face and you've got teachers assigned out? This is the way we need to do it.
Do we have, do we have funds available, and also I know probably space available, to where in certain schools that we can add another teacher? This may be temporary, you know, but as far as adding 4th or 5th grade teacher, because where we can, because it's just a big issue, I'm telling you, with having 25 and 30 kids in a classroom, I think.
Or that would be dealing with our allotment formulas, which we watch very closely, and we won't lock in numbers until the 40th day, and that's all driven by student numbers.
But we do have teachers, staff members that we pay that
Okay.
are not part of the allotment.
You brought up an interesting point, because you just got me thinking outside the box a little bit. All right, and it's bothered me a little bit. Last year, when we closed up on March the 14th or whatever, we had some people we were going to use for tutoring.
Yeah, we still pay them.
We still pay them. Tutoring money, I know that's separate, but like retirees that come in, if the numbers in one school were really off the chart, could you maybe bring in a retired teacher to sub or try, or could you find one, or?
We watch numbers with the allotment. That money used to hire tutors is different from school to school, and it's based on needs. And that's not a pot of money you can just pull and say, we're going to use this.
That's what I figured.
You can't. And schools make different decisions. Some schools use monies for tutors, whereas others use it for other things. But, what you're talking about now is us watching class sizes and watching growth, or watching schools that didn't make their number and having to make decisions about whether to not pull a teacher, and that's the whole process we run every year.
I'm going to ask you a question, Fred, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I am a little bit, because I think I know your answer. I mean this in all due respect. I'm thinking what Fred is saying. He was pushing for 5 days back in August.
Yeah.
All right.
But we were social distance.
We were social. We were going to send some to middle school and high school. And I think, the reason Fred is pushing for 4 now, you learn a lot through this. You see the stress and everything that it's put on. And you realize we probably wouldn't have been having this conversation. It wouldn't even be an issue. Everybody would be fine with the A day, B day, if the governor had to put this out. And so I think that you're thinking, well, this is a way to kind of ease into it to get it right. That's what I feel like. Is that what you're thinking, kind of?
Yeah, I do. I think it's, no matter what what we do 4 or 5 days, actually we're doing all 5 days, but, 4 days in person. Okay, 5 days, but no matter what we do, it is a problem with the 4th and 5th grade. And and again, you don't, forgive me, I forget the words that you use, something about being creative or whatever. Well, we may have to be creative in that we have to find some funds from somewhere to add a teacher if we have to somewhere, because we can't put 30 kids in a classroom. You're talking about, whoever said that earlier about, some places we're hoping that, something breaks out in Randolph County, so they say, look what you did. Well, we put 30 kids in a classroom, it breaks out, then it's really going to be, now look what you did. So, and we can't apply the old rules, the old measures to run a school system to something that is totally foreign and something totally new to us. And if we have to add a 4th grade teacher at XYZ elementary, then we got to come up with funds somewhere to do that, whether it be on I just think that we've got to find some place. There's money out there in different pots. I understand that, we can't use, we don't use certain funds for certain things, but sometimes we may want to do something and ask for forgiveness later.
Till we make a decision on what we're going to do and the kids come back, you don't know what you're going to face. We can sit here and what if all night. What if there isn't? Gotta make a decision.
And it's not something that's going to be popular with 17 of these positions, but we've got a lead teacher in every one of those schools. That lead teacher can teach a 4th or 5th grade class if we had to for a period of time.
I agree with that.
We got a PE teacher that, what would you rather have? Guys, we're not doing PE in elementary school for the next 3 months, or we're gonna put 30 kids in the classroom for 3 months. I'd rather say we don't have PE and we end up with 15 to 18 kids in the classroom.
That's where you
Well, a couple of things I need to point out. There's a requirement of physical activity.
I know, I can be a
And I
regular
have to-
teacher and still go up there and do PE. I don't have to be a PE teacher to do PE, there, do I?
What'd you say?
If I'm teaching a 4th grade class, just the regular classroom teacher, I can go do PE, physical activity with them. I don't necessarily have to send them to a PE teacher to do it, correct?
Recess adds to the physical activity requirement, but
Okay.
when the school systems are signed, is required to sign forms off every year that the physical activity requirement is met. Also want to point out, just as a figure, as we're talking about extra teaching positions, 10 teaching positions will cost no less than $650,000. So, a teacher position costs about $65,000, maybe a little bit north of that, so.
And there are other teachers out there.
Well, there's your other piece, but.
So what do you feel about what he said about lead teachers if he was in the bench?
Well,
Can that be something you consider?
that's already happened. That already happens in schools. Lead teachers are already filling in classrooms when there's vacancies. And so that's already, say, you know,
Well, I didn't know that, but it could be
yeah, and
there.
that they're responsible for the testing issues that are taking place in the schools. So that's already being used a great deal. In fact, I know one school last year that lead teacher was in a regular classroom for almost the entire year.
Now, Fred, was you talking about putting PE teachers in other classrooms, or, I mean?
All I'm saying is, if I'm an elementary school PE teacher, and we said, Mr. Burgess, you're going to teach a 4th grade class, a regular class. They are a certified teacher.
Are you saying have them teach others?
Have them teach,
Okay. I didn't
if
want
rather than
to.
having 30 kids in a 4th grade class, and all of a sudden, now we can add that PE teacher to do it, then, all right, now we can get down to 20 maybe.
Okay, not wait anybody
I
off.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, so we're not adding a position, you know. Unless,
You're talking about being creative.
yeah, I know, and again, this is something that we don't want to say in public, but we know this being said in private. There are a lot of teachers that are being asked to do over and over and over and over above what normal workload is.
Yeah.
And we've got some teachers in our school system that are doing less than what they did with normal, and
That's still.
it's not because they're being lazy or anything like that. So we've got other teachers who, they don't have the same responsibilities.
I guess
They're just not doing that. So,
Classroom teachers have.
I guess my big concern would be certification. You know, they got to be certified.
well, but if I'm remote, you know who's teaching me now? My 7th grade sibling. Yeah, or if I have one, if not, nothing's being taught to.
Look, this is what we hire principals and assistant principals to do. We hire them to do this. It's not our job as a school board to sit here and dictate who's going to teach what grade. It's what we hire them to do.
I understand.
And that's what we got to ask them to do, and they got to step up and do their jobs.
I understand, Tracy, and I've never got to the point where I want to tell a principal or how to run a school. I'm just saying, we keep talking about be creative, be creative. Well, you know, I think that's more creative than sticking 30 kids in a classroom. So, I don't know. I'm until we can know more, I'm 4 days a week is where I would, 5 days instruction, 4 days in person is where I would stand. Leaving Wednesday where it is.
And Dr. Gainey, do you think you can have it ready where they, what's the date, gosh, I lost it.
The 12th.
Be ready on the 12th of October? I know you got that as soon as.
It says no later than 22nd.
Yeah, number 2 says the earliest.
So the number right now in K-5, we have 5,012 students that are face-to-face, and we have 1,614 students who are remote, elementary K-5 system-wide. Now, will those numbers change based on whatever we decide, were they gonna change based on the 25th if we hadn't had this decision by the governor? I think they would have. I don't think the number of remote would have stayed as high. I may be wrong.
Where are you the most comfortable, the 12th or the 27th?
So roughly,
I'll tell you this right now, I won't do it tomorrow.
All right, we'll go to the 5th then.
I want to do it tomorrow.
12 is 3 weeks.
I want to do it tomorrow, but I want to do it right, which, and I say you want to do it, I say that,
You
and
didn't answer that question right.
I know.
You did not.
But knowing what staff needs to do, and knowing that it's bigger than transportation, child nutrition, and staff that I interact with every day, it's allowing teachers to get adjusted to what might happen, allowing principals to look at multiple angles and not have to make a decision tomorrow that they have to stick with because the kids are coming. I would like more time than the 12th.
October
I would.
12th is 3 weeks from today.
Yes.
And you're talking about, they're not even going to tell us if they're going to be remote or face-to-face until the end of this week, so that gives you 2 weeks.
So I'd like,
Can it be done in 2 weeks?
what'd you say, Mr. Scott?
So
Yeah, I could live with it.
Maybe that-
I would like some more time. I would.
Well, that would be 3 weeks after
To your-
stay in or holiday time.
Yeah, I would like, some discussion came up in one of the meetings I was in today about the 22nd being a Thursday, or would you want to do it on Monday? We were looking for a landmark. The 19th is a good one too. I would like, Mr. Cook, in answer to your question, I'd like a little bit more time. Because I hate it.
19th would be good.
I think the 19th would be better than the 12th. I just hate to have a principal out there who feels like whatever decision he or she's got to make is the first time they see it, and then they walk down the hallway and they get another discussion, and they have a better idea based on the discussion they have with teachers. I'd like to have time for this to be digested. We were number one. We're always going to be number one in my heart. We were number one on the 17th of August. We're still number one because we're going to do the right thing by kids. And doing the right thing by kids is taking more time to get the K-5 kids there, more than we're doing. And I say more than we're doing, Mr. Burgess. Whatever this board decides, we're going to get behind wholeheartedly as a staff. But if we're going to get them there more than we're doing right now, then we don't have to be the first one to the show. We're going to do it. We need to be the ones doing it right. I hear all this that you're saying, and I'm like Mr. Boyles down there. I could maybe, whenever y'all can come to a consensus on something, then I'll give direction to staff and we'll move forward. But this is about our kids.
Do you think, like surrounding schools, I mean, I'm not, I know you don't know the answer, but I'm wondering, we'll just use Asheville City, particularly. But do you think they will, since they're just getting ready to come back, will they go through the process probably like we've just been through, do you think, before they jump right? I mean, you almost would have to, I would think, but you know what I'm saying? I don't know, I just wondered. I mean, we're really ahead of the
We're
game.
ahead of the game.
That's what I'm feeling like, we're ahead of the game,
I think so, too.
Several of my colleagues opened up last week on the 14th, and then I know another one opened, 2 more open today.
Have you heard any comments from them since the governor's decision?
No. See, and that's, they're a little bit, maybe more, it's probably affected them more because they just rolled out what we rolled out in
Just thinking they may
17.
have to move with that program a while
What's
before they.
good about what we have in place now is we have some things in place that staff members are using the same language now. Principals are calling in with stuff and we're using the same language, we've been using it for 5 weeks, so that kind of stuff's in place. Questions are being asked that more every day, more, we're building more collateral with knowledge base. So that's gonna help us with whatever next step winds up being. But I would caution us as a school system, I guess the thing that comes back is let's do it right.
So, Dr. Gainey, with those numbers you had, of our elementary schools, approximately 73% of the kids are going 2 days a week now, correct?
It's 5,012 face-to-face and 1,614
So maybe be closer to 70%.
70%, is that what you get back? 70%?
Off my head.
Yeah, you're looking at, what is that, 6,600, and you're bumping on up there. And I think Thursday's or Friday's decision time is gonna help us. I agree with Mr. Lambert too. Parents, I mean, I've talked to parents who don't know what their remote work situation is gonna be 3 more weeks out or 4 more weeks out. Are they going, we were talking to a parent the other day who was saying, everything's been remote for a while, but what happens when it's, and what, I can't say anything to them other than, hang in there, we're gonna get back to school as soon as we can.
You can't remote stock a shelf at a grocery store.
Yeah.
I mean, I know in our middle schools and the high schools, we're probably looking at 50 to 55%, probably. But we're here talking about elementary school tonight.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Randolph County Board of Education adopt the superintendent's recommendations for K-5 instruction to begin on Monday, October 19th for full 5-day instruction.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
Guys, I'll tell you, this is gonna be a mistake. This is gonna be a mistake.
Clarification. Before they vote, Jill,
Yeah.
that motion, Mr. Lambert, includes everything. Are we cutting out number 7? Or are we coming back to that later? Or what are we doing with number 7? I just asked that, Mr. Lambert, because that came up multiple times, and I want to make sure, because I will get asked that tomorrow.
I'm making a motion on the document as presented.
With the only change being October 19th. Gotcha.
All right,
Don't do this.
second. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no.
No.
And the
Board
reason
member,
I'm
I think
saying,
we're gonna need to do a roll call because
Yeah.
the people watching remotely need to be able to know how everyone voted.
okay. State your name and, your vote.
Matthew Lemon, aye.
Todd Keller.
Todd Keller, aye.
Brian Biggs, aye.
Gary Cook, no. And let me say that, if I may, the reason being, I like the idea that we could do it 3 or 4 weeks and we could add that other day. I mean, I'm not against going back. I'm big on going back right. I'm big on going back fairness to staff and everybody, and it's just my opinion. But we're good. When we leave here, we'll all be good. All right.
Okay. Sharon Farlow, aye.
Y'all just dumped a lot of work on the elementary school teachers. Fred Burgess, no.
Tracy Bowles, no.
Motion passes 4-3.
It's 4-3.
I mean, that's my only concern. Yeah, I want kids back. But till we see the numbers and see how it's going, I agree with Fred that, that's what got me overloading the teacher at this point.
Okay, we'll move on to operations and Marty Charter.
Okay, board members, you thought the last item was tough, this will be the toughest one probably for the night. The selection of the calendar committee member from the Board of Education. We're working on the 2022-2023 calendar. So as always, we need a representation from the school board.
Sharon Farlow.
Just volunteered to say
I
that.
thought she just wanted.
I think,
Sharon does the teacher.
no, I don't think Sharon needs it. It needs to be somebody who's not up for reelection.
Yeah, that's good.
I think so too, but you might not can. All those in favor say Biggs, say aye.
I'll do it.
All right, Brian Biggs.
All right, you do have your calendar there.
He does a great job.
First meeting will most likely be virtual, so hopefully that'll see you guys.
I'm trying.
Okay,
You want to be the alternate?
I'll be the alternate.
She's the alternate.
oh, you just got stuck. Anita, I think he just definitely got stuck. I got him no show Biggs. Need a motion to approve, Brian Biggs as the Board of Education's representative to the School Systems Calendar Committee.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Opposed?
All right, thank you.
One, over here, Fred, yeah. So explain to me, now that we've done this, what are these remote days on the calendar? What does all that mean now? Has anything changed that we still have these remote days?
I don't know if that was for 1 year only or if that's moving forward. Jill, do you happen to know the 5 days that they designated as remote learning days? Is
They
that,
are for this year. I don't know if they are beyond this year. I
One of them is October.
yeah.
Yeah, we got one coming up in a couple, but also, I mean,
What you're asking is about now that we've got
Yeah,
the
no.
K-5.
Right.
Well, it obviously applies, they were teaching
They don't
work
change,
days.
it didn't change the calendar. That's part of the calendaring law, not part of any declaration of emergency.
They were teaching work days,
Right,
so there would be 5 remote days
right.
at K-5.
So those are teacher work days now?
They were always were teacher work days / remote work days, counted student hours. But teachers can take annual leave.
So we're not going to require teachers to teach remotely on that day, right? I mean, or when you said they can't take leave, I mean,
That's what was confusing.
I'm confused right here because that
So
work
are
day,
they-
so we're going to work during the day then remote too? I mean, I don't like the way that, I'm
The kids are
misunderstanding.
not there, so we're going back on Monday and the kids have off Wednesday.
I don't know. I don't understand that.
Because it's October 14th.
That was,
I don't know.
Okay, so those days are
Clear that up
basically teacher work
again.
days.
Help me.
Right, teacher work days.
So-
Teachers' work days, they're not required to go in, I mean, they can go in and work, but should they, I mean, they decide they don't even, they want to take a, like that, a lot of them do. And I'm sure a lot of them will take it real soon because they probably earned it. I mean, they feel like, I would think, you're tired.
But they're instructional days, so they won't have had to have taught, take the lesson. This is a really difficult year to do a calendar, but you remember that the calendar requires you to either have 1,025 hours of instruction plus the 5 days, however that formula works, or the days of instruction with the 5 days added. And so that's why I say, there's no such thing as Wednesdays off or you will never get to those numbers that are required by law if you're not actively teaching in some of the fashions acceptable on those days.
So you're saying on a normal work day, we're supposed to go in and maybe we'll remotely teach most of the day, then stay to 8 o'clock doing our room? I don't know, I don't understand that.
When the legislation came out, the legislators identified these 5 days. They put them on top of teacher work days, and they identified them as remote learning days for students. And what is confusing is a teacher can take annual leave on that day. So what we are concerned about is the provision of instruction for students on that day. Knowing we could have reduced staff on those days, because teachers have the right to take annual leave like a teacher work day. So schools will work to make sure that the instruction is provided, I would guess instructionally, remotely or virtually. You may have schools that have people designated that are going to work that day. So this was an unusual piece of legislation that came out as a result of this pandemic. So it counts towards instructional hours, towards the 1,025 hours, because our calendar is based on hours. It counts that way. The idea that a day counts as a student day and a teacher work day, it's just pretty bizarre. Would you not say, Jill, and nobody was consulted. That came out of legislation. That was one of the first things we saw. It was one of the first things that came out, and so we will work with it the best we can, but teachers do have the right to take annual leave on that day like they would on a teacher work day. So it may be...
Kids at school.
No, the kids will not be in school.
They're not at school,
They'll be-
technically they're supposed to be.
It's a
taught
remote
at home.
instruction
They will get
day, but
remote
it's an
instruction.
instruction day. So do you tape your lesson and then show it? No.
There'll be a lot of...
That's the most
There-
logical thing is that they're taped lessons.
There's
but
a
it doesn't
pre-recorded-
make a lot of sense.
There'll be a lot of pre-recorded
Or
lessons
worksheets
loaded.
sent out.
Yes, probably.
So it's still 185 days though, right?
We operate,
We do it hourly.
yeah, so this only helps us.
I understand it's our hours, but as far as days,
We come.
are we going 5 days longer than what we were then? Like, as far as in previous years?
5 more student days.
That's what
You
they
count the student
intend.
days? Yes.
They intended to add 5
Count
more
the road
days.
All right.
5 more days teachers had to work. Yes.
It does get complicated now, Mr. Burgess, with this change now with the K-5.
How do you handle a snow day?
Well, we got 25 of them built in now.
Yeah, I mean, I said it. I mean,
We will use our
you're
typical
going to
weather.
use the first 5 days if it snows, or you're
Yes.
going to call them remote learning? I guess is what I'm saying. Now, the calendar says here that we've approved, it says absorb the first 5 days and follow the schedule.
Yes.
So, you know, I'm.
I don't see a change in that game plan.
Okay, that's
But-
all I'm asking, because I don't want it to snow, and we don't clearly state that we tell these people, are you gonna remote teach, are you gonna, you know what I'm saying? I think we need,
I don't
I
think
see
that-
it here, I wanna stick to it.
I don't remember anything in the counter law saying we could start
I'm
designating
just trying
any
to
weather
clear
days
it
as
up.
remote.
So here's what's gonna happen. There is no question, but that is exactly what's gonna happen. From now until eternity,
Yes.
there will be no such thing as snow days. Because when it's snowing, instead of getting on the bus, you turn on your device. That is going to be what is expected to get to your 185,
But this
190
calendar
days.
says absorb it first, so
I
this
under-
one,
I
I would touch
understand
it with a
I
10-foot pole.
understand it, because it didn't all come out, it hasn't all
But Jill-
played out logically.
But Jill, here's what has not been considered. Just like the piece about, we've got to decide whether to bring back the Chromebooks or not elementary. So it starts snowing at 11 o'clock at night. We're going to have a Chromebook pick up at 12:30 that morning?
I'm just telling you that this is how it's gonna go.
No,
So
better yet,
you'll
Jill.
figure it
Hey,
out.
Jill, better yet, we're going to have a instructional packet pickup at 12:30 in the morning.
But, yeah, so
Dr.
the
Gary,
bottom
this
line
have to
is
be
there,
you.
I make a motion.
there will be expected that there's no such thing as snow days by next year. I just guarantee you.
I would say that's where we're headed,
Yep,
by the state.
Yep.
By the
For right
state.
now, Mr. Cook, we're following our calendar.
That's
Okay?
exactly right. I just wanted to make that clear, where there'll be no misunderstanding.
We won't
because I
get
wouldn't
into what
touch
we
it.
did for about 5 years ago.
I fought really hard for that 5 years ago.
That was 7 years ago, that was my first year.
Yeah, but Dr. Gainey didn't like it that night either.
No,
I remember
he
well.
When you had a special call board meeting on a Friday afternoon, that was tough. Over the calendar.
I drove home with it, that was worse.
Okay, are we ready to
Move on.
move on?
All right. Board members, next item in your packet is a permanent easement for a water line at Randleman Elementary. That request is coming from the city of Randleman. They want to replace their water line there on Swain Street. And if you'll recall, if you've been on this board for just the last few years, you'll probably recall we've had water issues for water main breaks and things like that in this area. So this will be a huge plus, hopefully, for that school and certainly that community as well. But tonight, the map there, let me just point out a couple things. As you move up the page, it's coming off of Main Street, up Swain Street, so it'll cross just on the outside of that sidewalk that's there now, it'll cross the lower parking lot drive, come on up, cross the upper, or the first entrance drive into the school, the exit drive to the school, and as well as the upper parking lot above the building there. Our maintenance facilities folks have talked with Public Works, with the city of Randleman, and have shared what we would like to see as far as compaction and things like that going back in on this line. And so they're in agreement with that. And so tonight we just ask for approval of this permanent easement for Randleman Elementary.
When do you plan on putting the new water main in?
Sooner than later, I hope. I think they're waiting on us tonight to see if it's a go, and then they should be making progress from there.
We'll put any delays up there, using parking lots and...
They know our schedule. They're gonna work around that, you know, either during the school day and not even try to impact the opening or dismissal time and things like that. So they're aware of our schedule.
Okay, we need a motion to approve the permanent easement for the water line at Randolph Elementary School. May I have a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I move that the Randolph County Board of Education will enter into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute to preserve the attorney-client privilege to discuss confidential personnel matters protected by North Carolina General Statute.
Okay, real quick, then I'll ask for the second. I noticed we had a larger crowd tonight was watching our board meeting, and we appreciate you guys showing the interest to watch it. And I'm sure we didn't make everyone happy, but sometimes it's tough decisions and just have to make them and roll with them. But we do appreciate parents working with us, staff working with us to help make a difficult situation as possible, as positive as we can. But anyway, thank you guys. We have the motion to go into closed session. We have a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're in closed session.
good.
Ready? Okay, we're back in open session. I need a motion to approve the certified personnel report.
So moved.
I need a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Need a motion to approve the classified personnel report.
So moved.
Have a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We need a motion to approve the administrative report.
So moved.
Have a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, need a motion to extend Dr. Gainey's contract to the maximum time permitted by law through June 30th, 2024.
So moved.
Okay, so second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So we need a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Have a second? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, opposed?